Welcome to the Consummate Athlete Podcast, where we explore what it means to be a well-rounded, happy, goal-crushing athlete. Every week, myself, sports journalist Molly Herford, and cycling coach and kinesiologist Peter Glassford interview experts and chat through all of your training questions. We're excited to have you along for the ride. Hello. Welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Peter, how's it going?
It's going excellent. I'm starting to get nervous for you as you approach your 100-miler coming up here in a little under 2 weeks. Are you excited? Are you good? You're through your last long runs?
Well, geez, now I'm more nervous. A couple weeks ago, we talked about race nerves. That was the topic of the podcast. And I have to admit, ever since recording that, I feel like already that dial up. So my nerves are starting to get there, but I also am, really excited for it. We've had some good last long runs and the weather has been great, which is nice. So fingers crossed for some dry racing. Every 100-miler is different. And I keep trying to remind myself, just because I did this one last year, and this is actually very much what we're talking about today with our guest, but just because I did this same race last year, it could be a completely different race between your own body, but also just the course conditions. If it's rainy there, it's going to be a different race.
Mm-hmm. And you've put a stretch goal of trying to get to the course record, which is just sort of like a target. But the weather could change. You could have your shoes fall off or something. I don't know. It's not quite like flat tire, but the running version of flat tires, which are numerous, the ways that things can go sideways. But I think it's exciting, right? And I keep reminding you that you might just get a good race. It might be a muddy one, but you're head to head with someone, which will be fantastic too.
Yeah, exactly. So we will see. But today we are talking about another favorite 100-miler of ours, the Leadville 100. The mountain bike is coming up in just over 3 months.
That's right. I think we're maybe 13 weeks. Yeah.
So we'll also use this as a quick opportunity to say, if you are racing Leadville, if you haven't started training yet or you haven't been using a training plan, the Leadville 3-month training plan, we will include a link to that in the show notes. Peter, what can people expect with that plan?
Well, our most popular one is the 8-month one, I think, because it starts at January 1st approximately, which always pains me a little bit, but it is a popular one, I think, because of that. So then we do another one, which is more traditional. I build a lot of 2 and 3 month plans, especially for the pre-made ones. And so this Leadville plan takes you from this sort of early May, all the way to race day somewhere towards the early middle of August for Leadville bike. We should say that as well as we transition from Molly's Run race. So that's getting started. And then new this year also, because there was a few requests for it and I had built a couple. So I did a 55 plus Leadville plan, which is for the same duration, 3 months, but it's just a little more tuned towards those in the 50s, 60s, 70s, where maybe there's a bit more recovery demands, a desire to do a bit more cross training and strength training mixed in with the biking. It's still very hard. I am always amazed by these people, but it just, some of the common questions that would come up and be like, is this too much intensity for me? Or are these too many long rides? And so it's just tuned slightly for that 55 plus.
Well, and it's very funny because, as usual, I'm working on an article around this, and actually, unrelated to the fact that you made that plan, or kind of unbeknownst to you as you made that plan, I was chatting with our dear friends Frank Overton, Joe Friel, these experts in coaching in general, but specifically towards aging athletes. And I was actually asking them, how do you think about intensity as athletes get older? And they have slightly different approaches. Obviously, every coach has their own thing, but both of them generally said obviously intervals still matter. Intensity still matters. You still have to have it when you're older, and for a myriad of reasons, not just to be fast, but it's also really good for so many other health systems as well. Yeah. But their big thing is shifting either the number of workouts or even the number of intervals within the workouts, allowing for longer recovery periods, both, again, during the workout and just between the actual sessions. So I think it's a really smart thing to have this slightly tweaked version of the plan.
So there you go. So we'll link to that. That's the sponsor for today's show. So that's the ad you have to listen to. Okay. Do we want to tease who we have here today?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Well, we have Michael Hotten, better known as Hottie, who along with Fatty, was the co-host of the Leadville podcast. So they had a Leadville podcast for I think about 10 years, and it's a great podcast. It still exists. You can go back and listen to it. A lot of it still applies. And so we have Michael on. You actually ran into him at the Sea Otter Classic, I believe.
Yeah, we were at a media breakfast together, and we got talking about podcasting, and he was telling me about his and his co-host Leadville exploits, and I was like, we have to have you on the podcast because so many people are... Leadville is a bucket list race for so many people. But beyond that, what really intrigued me about him is he was telling me about it, and he's raced it several times, but he's also crewed it a bunch of times. And to me, that instantly like lit up, oh, we have to have him on to talk about it, because I think crewing for a big race like this, especially not just for the pros, I think it's actually almost more important for the person who's trying to do it as their bucket list race. Crewing is so important and can be the difference between getting the belt buckle or not at Leadville. You take a little too long at these crew stations, and I think that's that's a thing that people towards the back, that's a mistake they tend to make. Or their crew isn't really prepared because the person racing hasn't prepped the crew. And all of that can add up to not crossing that finish line in the time that you want. So I thought having him on to talk about the crew element of it as someone who's both raced it and crewed it was going to be super interesting. And of course, he did not disappoint.
That's right. And so we do go deep on Leadville today, talking about crewing, as Molly says, and then also racing it. But there's a lot of elements there that I think are going to relate to a lot of people, whether you're doing local racing and you've been doing that for a long time, or like other 100-milers, or you're a runner, or whatever the situation is. It's just things like, how does Michael, he went back multiple times to Leadville. He wasn't winning Leadville, but he went back with sort of different goals each time. Some of them were time goals, some of them were doing them with someone else. And I just find that interesting. And then also just saying, okay, I really like this community, but maybe racing in it, training for it doesn't fit into my life at this year or whatever. But then can I be part of it in some way? Can I crew? Can I, in the running, there's often pacing opportunity. I know in Leadville, the run, that's like a huge thing. People will try and like even just advertise themselves as pacers to join in with people. And you end up with people developing relationships that last a long time. So I thought that was like a really great takeaway. We also do finish the podcast talking more towards his, Michael's latest podcast or current podcast, the Marginal Gains podcast, which I think will really appeal to a lot of our listeners as well, where they talk about things like Aero socks and helmets and of course Silka wax chains as well, which we get into a little bit, and my skepticism of that whole world, but he tries to convince me. So that's fantastic as well, and I appreciate that insight.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into it. And please hit us up with any racing, crewing, etc. questions. Peter has a race coming up this weekend, and then my race is 2 weeks off. So we are ready and raring to go when it comes to talking about race day questions. So keep them coming. And with that, enjoy this conversation with Michael Hotten. All right, we are here with Michael Hotten. Michael, I'm just not going to be able to get used to calling you Hottie. This is just going to be weird. I feel very strange calling another man Hottie when I'm sitting right next to my husband.
I know. Look, these nicknames kind of land in your lap. Sometimes you can do nothing about them. You fight against it with all your being, and then in the end, you're just stuck with it. You're stuck with a moniker.
Yep. And the more you fight it, I feel like the more it actually sticks to you when it comes to nicknames. So
right. Mm-hmm.
let's just lean right in. Okay. So we're here talking to you about Leadville, which makes sense because if there's a man who is deep in the Leadville lore, culture, racing, crewing, all of the things, it's you. Also your podcast co-host from your Leadville podcast. But we have you up first because we wanted to talk to you both about the racing and the crewing element. So I think I'm going to kick it off with probably the hardest question, which is more fun and which is more satisfying, racing versus crewing?
Boy, good one actually. My bike mind, my racer mind says, well, the racing's great. Like you come across the line, I crossed with a good friend of mine. We both big buckled. Like that was, a big relief. There's the exhaustion that's involved is almost rewarding, right? There's so much that you put into the event, so it's extremely satisfying. But my planning and managing brain says, oh, I love the crewing because, You've got a lot of balls in there. If you're crewing for more than just one rider, which we always do, we always double, triple, quadruple up when we're running a crew station. I love that too. Like, helping other people succeed, I think can be just as rewarding. And the crew scene, for years at least, has been a great party too. So I don't know if I can give you a straight an answer one way or the other on that.
There can be many good things, I guess, right? That's the tough thing with life, but it's better to have good things to choose from. Um, okay, well, we were going to get in and sort of ask you a bit about your athlete, when you've done it, riding yourself, because we have a lot of people who do it and return to it and dream of doing the Leadville 100. So we were curious, you've done it 4 times, correct? Four?
Four finishes, yeah. Mm-hmm. 4 finishes.
Now, when you did that, were they all back to back to back, and you were chasing the time and trying to get the belt buckle, or were they spread out and you had to evolve sort of like what success meant? Like, what did that look like for those 4?
Yeah. So in 2011 was my first go, and Lifetime had just taken over the event, and I qualified in. I think the qualifiers had just The Tahoe qualifier had just become part of the scene there. In fact, Tahoe's out now, by the way, so there's no more Tahoe qualifier.
Well, it's funny. I also did it that year. We did it together
Okay.
in some sense. And I qualified at Wilmington, which also is not a qualifier anymore.
No longer, yeah. So I qualified in, and, I went into the event. I qualified in July, and here comes Leadville in August. I decided to go right away as opposed to deferring for a year. And so the event kind of was right on top of me quite quickly. And the problem with 2011 for me was I was really fit. I was climbing as better than I ever had. But I made a cardinal error, 2 of them, in 2011. First, I was not precise in the time I was going for. On my top tube, I put sub 9 hour and all the splits down. And I also put sub 10 hour down and all the corresponding splits for that. And that gave me the mental out, right? As soon as I was running a little behind, I just went right for the 10 hour. The other big error I made that year was standing around the feed zones too much, right? Time not pedaling is time wasted. And I really kind of lollygagged in the feed zones a little too much. So that set me up for 2013. I gave it a year off. I went back to Tahoe, qualified again in 2012, deferred to 2013, and really went back with the idea of, and I'll have to say, my wife even was too, like, you're going sub 9 this year. That's it. And so she was adamant that I was not going to mess it up twice, right? And sure enough, I was in a much better headspace. I'd actually put on weight. I was actually a little heavier, a little stronger, so I wasn't the climber I was, but I was more determined that, and I knew, this is within my reach. And so 2013, I was able to nail the big buckle. The other 2 times I finished, I actually was pacing someone. I got a wild idea that I knew this Masters racer here. He's 10 years older than me. So he was in the 60-plus category. But he was really fast, and I watched him. I crewed one year, ran a whole team crewing situation, and I watched him race. I'm like, man, it's his first time here. He did like a 9:20, finished second in the 60-plus category. I'm like, that guy could break 9 if he just had a little help or maybe a pacer or something like that. Well, we went back twice trying to pace him to victory in the 60-plus category. Just never could quite get there. Actually, pacing is probably harder than riding for yourself. You want to talk about something that's very difficult to do. The runners know this, right? Pacing someone else, really trying to dictate the tempo for a rider behind you is quite difficult to do. So that was my other 2 attempts, was actually riding in support of somebody else, but still, we had a great time. And we put them on the podium twice, which was great.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I love just to hear how that evolves, right? We keep doing things, but change it up. You mentioned Fatty had done single speed and all these iterations of like how you could do this thing. And we've seen that a lot. I just do it a little different, so it's not quite as comparable, right? This is a single speed one. I love that. I'm curious because this like ambitious goal is a big thing people do when they get coaching or they do things like Leadville. How did the conversation go? How did your friend who you paced handle the like 2 misses? Like, it's still so impressive that this person is moving that fast, but how did you 2 handle it? What was the discussion like at the finish line and post the we'll call them failures?
Well, he didn't see them as failures.
Okay.
First, we should be clear about that, because he
They
First
were
of
in
all,
quotes. It was a quote failure.
yeah, we still got him on the podium, which was great. He didn't win. He didn't win his category, but we still got him on the podium, which he thought were wins. I think he was fine with it in the end. We probably overtrained him. I would say he probably rode too much for his age. I was good 10, 12 years younger than him, so I'm riding my thing, and then he's riding with me a lot, and so we probably overdid it. We probably cooked him a little bit, I would say. There was one, the first year we did it together. I'll never forget the morning of the race. Here's a lesson for everyone. Actually, the night before the race, I'm in bed. I can hear him downstairs tinkering with his bike.
No.
Okay, I know. We get up the next morning. He takes off for the start line. He wants to get down there early. I'm sitting on the floor doing some stretching, and I hear him coming back up the driveway. Honey, honey, honey. Whatever he'd been tinkering on, his brakes failed him. He got down to the start line and no rear brake or something like that. So he got back up. Luckily, he had a spare bike with him, and a good one, a good fast race bike. So he hopped on that, took off, went back to the start line, and so there were stressors like that may have cost him the win, but again, he was still on the podium, still a great day out on the race course.
So impressive. Yeah. That's 60 and I think even 70 the year old age groups are growing. It's wild.
Well, because the population is aging. Leadville is a bucket list thing, right? This is the Boston Marathon of mountain biking, and people look at it that way. So as boomers start to age up, it's still on their to-do list, or as they have time available, so the median age of the Leadville racers continue. I think you're going to start seeing, and that in the publicity of some of the racers who are 60 or 70 and above who have finished it has become a little more well-known. I think is attracting other people in.
Almost like a 4-minute mile or two hour marathon type situation.
And remember, Leadville, you have to be 18 to race the Leadville. So you're not going to see many youngsters in the event.
Fair.
Right.
Maybe historically, let's leave the last few years or going forward. We can chat about, how things are evolving for this year, maybe towards the end. But why do you think people go to, why have you, I would say you've
why Leadville?
Not based your life around, but you based 10 years of a podcast. You've gone there many times. Why, what is it about this race, that attracts people? Why is it a bucket list? Why is it the Boston Marathon?
Well, for me, the reason I got involved, first of all, for me, I came from road racing. And when I first saw Leadville, I saw something I recognized. Now, mountain biking, you look at the sport of mountain biking and you see single track and technical terrain. And for a road racer who didn't have a lot of technical skills, that leap is a little harder for me to make. But when I looked at Leadville, I saw speed, I saw fast descending, I saw pace lines, I saw people working together. And I went, oh, I recognize that. I can do that, right? That makes sense to me. So that helped me leap in. I think one of the beauties of Leadville is year in and year out, it's for the most part the same course. And the out and back format too is the thing I think that really draws people into it, and the experience of seeing the front of the pack past them coming the other way. Doing the same course year in and year out for the most part. It has changed a little bit. And being able to judge yourself year to year, right? Time to time. And against other people from different eras makes it an attraction too for people wanting to go back and see it. Lance Armstrong, we have to, he did bring attention to the race. So have other pro racers. The 2 films that came out that I still tell people they should reference if they're preparing for Leadville, because they're still great. They're still relevant. Mm-hmm. Also help elevate it. And then, obviously the Grand Prix lifetimes energy that they've put into the race to help promote it have only added to that too, to bring people in, to make them interested in the race.
It's a fantastic answer. I'm wondering then, and I agree. I think you covered everything there about what makes it. It's hard. I think is maybe the only other thing. I think that's it's like a thing that a lot of people fail at, right? And then they have these buckles. It's like they've set the race up in this way, like you say, that it's the same course. There's these belt buckles, and so it's like there's a challenge for everyone, whether you're trying to get sub 7 or 9 or 12, just get across the line. It's a range of challenges or wins for people. So
And I think it's the only one that I can think of where there's a bike and a run that are equally well known. So runners understand when you say Leadville, and cyclists understand when you say Leadville.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
hmm. Maybe if we go nitty gritty on your biking, I know I'll post even a couple of the episodes you had in the Leadville podcast because you've had some great people on talking about pacing and how do we govern this and how do we do a good job. For you, what do you think was the most effective way for you to sort of like control your effort, stay on pace, don't blow up, don't fade across this challenge? What do you think?
Well, all I know is I just went into each Leadville in the best shape I possibly could. Now, I came from road racing, criteriums, a lot of VO2 type efforts. So I was not as afraid, I think, as most people are about touching that red zone a little bit. I had heard the warnings like, oh, you got to stay out of the red. You don't want to be anywhere near your VO2 during the race. You want to be at that below FTP. We didn't use FTP back then. We used lactate threshold more than we used FTP back when I started racing. You wanted to stay in that area. But I was less bothered by that, by staying, because I was used to that type of effort where you go super hard and then back off. I think the second 2013, I did a better job of it. And I'll tell you how I probably got helped in that is I got with a group of like cyclists, riders who were basically in my condition, going for the same time, that 8-hour, 30-minute time. And so I used them to help me kind of pace things along. So I would say that. I hear the call now, though. I know what you're saying is that Leadville is a pacing event, probably whether you're doing the run or the ride. Like, you have to learn to pace and to stay out of the red zone and know what your number is. I have this love-hate thing with FTP and how we've kind of structured ourselves to ride and race, that we're no longer going on feel or what we're seeing or reacting to things. Now we're just looking down at our head units and riding to a number. But it works for a lot of people. Like, mathing the thing just works for a lot of people, especially time crunch athletes who have only 10, 12 hours a week at best to train for that thing. I get it. And for those people, yes, you're going to want to find a pacing plan and try to stick to it as much as you can.
Okay. Altitude wise, what do you think? Do you think you have to do altitude camps to get through Leadville, or what's your feeling on the altitude element?
Do them if you've got the money and time, but that's a huge expense. And
where do you live? We don't know that. Where do you live?
Los Angeles.
Train? That's right. I did know that, actually. So is that that's where you train for each of these?
Almost 100%. Besides doing like Tahoe Trail, maybe making a run out to Utah, to Cedar City, where they also used to have a qualifying event, I did 99.9% of my training here in Los Angeles, which is a good place to do Leadville training. I should say that. Like, great climbing here, long sustained climbs, that loose over hard dirt, a lot of fire road to run. So it's a good place to do it. Altitude, we've had a lot of discussion about altitude and whether or not you need to go to altitude before Leadville and how soon should you go to Leadville before the actual race day. There is a lot of differing opinion in this area. You're going to find it all over the map, I think. Look, if you can afford to go to Leadville and spend some time there and get to know the course beforehand and try to get a little acclimation, knock yourself out. Here's what to expect, though. Going to altitude is taxing. Like, that kind of effort up there for any length of time does wear you down. For most people, going to altitude just means they're slowly but surely eroding at their fitness because it's so high up. It's hard to get better at altitude. Where can you get better, stronger, faster? Usually at sea level, where you can suck in more air and get better and faster. But I get it. A lot of people want to get to know the course. They want to know how their body's going to react. They want to take away all those unknowns. And they feel an urge to go to Leadville and flush that out. Okay, go ahead. My strategy was always this. Get your butt in the best shape you can, wherever that is. if it's in Miami, if it's in Minnesota, if it's in Maine, if it's in Los Angeles, I ran out of M's there, sorry, do that. If you can just get yourself in the best shape you can, altitude is just going to do what it's going to do. It just is. It affects everyone. You're going to have a 20% loss in power no matter who you are. Going there is not going to change that. Going there may get you used to the altitude and give you a little bump, but it's a big expense, right? It's taxing on your body to be up there, and you got to be careful. You got to be careful.
So with that said then, and sort of like knowing your pacing strategy that you used, and then you've done all these years of talking to people about Leadville and different commonalities, are there any sort of like big rocks or commonalities in training, like things that like, because we have this saying that sort of like, do you want to, we ask this to athletes, do you want to prepare, or sorry, what is the saying? I should know this. Do you want to, can you prepare for the goal that you set, and do you want to? Sorry, there we go.
You go. There.
Comes right off the tongue. And so the idea then is like, if you could tell us then some big rocks to train for Leadville for success, given what you've said about altitude and the pacing stuff, like what do you think is important? And then someone can maybe decide, like, do I want to train for Leadville?
So the pillars of training for Leadville is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for?
In your mind, based on your experience, but you're saying, hey, Peter, you're going to go get ready for it this year. This is what you should expect. This is what you need to get done in these next 3 months, I guess now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you're going to need endurance. Obviously, it's an endurance event. You got to be able to last all day. So your ability to sit on your bike for 8, 10, 11 hours, whatever it's going to take you, is a pillar. Now, that does not mean go out and do 11-hour rides all at once. That does probably mean stacking rides, right? You want to probably do, if you can, say a 4-hour ride on Saturday and follow that up with a 3-hour ride on Sunday, and maybe something on Monday. If you can kind of stack those up like that, that's going to help build your endurance to kind of match the need that'll be at Leadville. So a lot of people make the mistake of trying to go out and do 10-hour, matching the Leadville length ride that they're going to do. I'd be really, really careful with that stuff. I get it. Again, it goes back to that confidence thing we talked about going to altitude. It's the same reason people at altitude, they want the confidence. The same reason people do a 10-hour ride. It's not necessary, though, and perhaps is more damaging than it is, right? Good, because you're going to have to recover for 6 days after a 10-hour ride. You got to climb. Sorry, it's 12,000 feet of climbing. So you better be able to climb. Climbing usually means power to weight. It doesn't mean lose all your weight or try to make some type of weight goal. It just means become a good climber, whatever that means for you, right? So climb, go out and be ready to do, Columbine for most people is an hour and a half, hour, 45-minute climb. That's a lengthy climb, right? That's a long climb. The crux of the race is power line coming home. That thing probably takes an hour to get to the top, I want to say. It's been a while for me. Again, it's long, it's steep, it's late in the day, so that type of training you're going to need. The other pillar of this race, and this is a line right from my co-host, Fatty, Leadville is an eating and drinking contest disguised as a bicycle race. If you have him on, he's going to say the same thing. I'm sorry, Fatty, if I stole your line, but that's his line, giving him full credit. You have to
one that we will say about pretty much every race, and we will continue to bang that drum. So we're right there with you.
You have to be able to eat and drink. You have to figure out during your training what works with your gut and what doesn't, how much you can take in per hour, what the proper fluid mix is for you, how much salt you need, right? How much do you sweat? I think somebody with good fitness but has nutrition nailed has a really good shot of finishing the Leadville Trail 100. But you got to eat and drink, or you won't make it out to Twin Lakes Dam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be a rough day. So again, what I see is like an athlete might think that they want to do this, but they're like, I don't really like riding longer than, an hour or two. And I don't want to leave Miami maybe at all. Like, not that you can't live in Miami, but if you're not going to go and find a few hills along the way, it might get tough. And then if you're also someone who really doesn't like to eat sugar powder or like do this type of stuff, then, it might be like, man, maybe this isn't the race for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going on this. I think maybe we could switch it, put your crew hat on now. So you've crewed more than you've raced this. You've
Hmm.
been there on the
Hmm.
sidelines. You've watched people make decisions, good and bad. And so what I like to ask, I would often ask this to like mechanics that I would work with because they'd stand in tech zones or stand in feed zones, and they don't talk a lot. Mechanics are really nice people, smart people, but they often don't say anything unless you ask. So I'd always be like, "Yeah, what am I doing wrong out there?"
And they'll tell you when you ask.
So I'm asking you, when you're standing there and you're waiting for people, you're watching, what are like some of the mistakes you've seen that people who are racing have made? We'll get to what the crew might do better, but what are the
Okay.
racers? What do you notice from the sidelines that you've sort of like just can see like a mile away when you're standing there?
Hmm. I mean, what mistakes do racers make as they
Racers.
enter a crew zone?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
one that we have professed quite often on the show is that racers, this is about clothing, actually. We have told people over and over, please wear something bright that your crew can see from a great distance away. Because in the crew zone, often the racer doesn't know exactly where their crew is. So you're relying on the crew to kind of see the racer from a distance. If the racer is wearing black or just some regular color and a black helmet or something, pretty nondescript, it's going to be hard for the crew to see that rider on approach. And you want the crew to be kind of ready for, as you come in and not kind of scrambling, right, as you pull up to the feed zone. Now, you may not know where your crew is exactly, so it's helpful if they can see you in advance and kind of wave you down, right? So wear something like hot pink, or I get it. You maybe don't love to wear highlighter yellow on your normal days of riding, but this is a good day because, again, you're out there with 1,500 other riders. And even though you're not riding with all of them at once, you're going to be likely come in with 30, 40 of them at once, and the crew zones are quite packed, and it's a little hard to see. And so give your crew an opportunity to see you. Also going before even race day starts, the night before, day before, 2 days before, and you really want to have, again, your feeding plan worked out. Okay, this goes what we talked about in the training area where you figured out exactly what works with you, what doesn't. You want to make sure too that you set out for each feed zone, each time you plan to stop, exactly what you want the crew to give you. Again, so there's no scrambling. There's no smorgasbord going on. You don't want this cafeteria style approach. You want a fairly precise approach to what you want your crew to give you. I see a lot of people kind of come in and they're kind of give me that. No, I want that. I want the Coke. I want this. I want pills. If you have a plan, if you set your meal for each stop, I think your stops will be much smoother. I don't mean you have to I've been accused of telling people they have to turn these stops into F1 stops. Kind of like if you ever watch Formula One, they do 2-second stops. Yeah, I have told people that great, that's a good goal to set. It doesn't have to be that, but it helps if it's just organized. And that really is on the racer. The first time I ever ran, I ran an entire team crew situation for the team I race for. I sat down each racer and I made them tell me word for word, feed for feed, item per item, what exactly they were expecting as they went and came by me outbound and inbound. Everything was placed in separate bags, well marked. So I knew when they came in, here's what you wanted. Here's what you're getting. Let's get stuff in your pockets. Let's eject bottles, put new bottles in. Let's get you on your way as efficiently as possible. So that's one of the mistakes I see is it's a little too disorganized and maybe not quite heads up and a little hard to see riders at times.
Yeah, I love that the athlete should decide what they're doing and then like make it simple for I always hate when you see even in like an XC race I see this sometimes where it's like the bottles are like all different types and I'm like you should just be thankful someone's handing you
It's
something.
usually a 15-year-old shrieking at his
Looking at their
mother.
face, and I'm like because I always am like here's a couple of just water, like just pass me some water. If you lose it, just another water bottle is great at some point in the next couple in the next hour if you could pass me a bottle, thank you.
Yes,
So,
and racers do not yell at your crew members. They're just
yes.
there helping you.
Yeah. So then on the flip side, you're standing there, you got all your baggies labeled, you have all the people, you got your orchestra, you're getting going. What do you look at other crews and not that you're, thinking badly, but you're sort of like, oh, like, is there anything that comes to mind when I say that? I'm just like, you're like, oh, careful, like, be careful.
Now,
Yeah.
Peter also, I will point out, has had like the worst experience you can have with a crew.
Well, not, yeah, not the worst, but yeah, I had a feed bag that caught handlebars going very quickly in 2011. Maybe you saw it. I don't know if
Oh,
you would have saw
really?
it. I was
It
okay.
caught your bars or caught your
My
bars, huh?
bars, my
Oh,
bars. And I
no.
went down, like at Twin Lakes and then like rode the rest, like the 60 miles remaining with like an oozing knee that got stitches at the end. And
Ooh.
yeah.
Not good. Yeah, not good. Okay, so crew members. Well, it's easy to get distracted in the feed zones because there's a lot going on. You can watch other racers. It's kind of a party atmosphere. Dogs are running all over the place. Little children. It can be a kind of wild. I'll start with a mistake I think we make, and that is I think we bring too much stuff to a feed zone. It's enough already, right? You got a pump, you got spare wheels, they're not pros, right? We're not pros. I
Mhm.
think that you got to find a sweet spot where you got just enough, you got the food covered, you got something for a emergency mechanical thing. But too often, I think we've brought bags of tools and spare wheels and floor pumps and just all manner of things, tables and chairs and pop-up tents. Um, it can be a bit much. So you got to kind of find that sweet spot where you've got just enough. You got enough where you can carry it maybe in one load from your car or from the shuttle. Because you
Yeah,
got
especially now because there's
shuttles now.
shuttles and yeah.
To your feed spot. As far as the crews go, when they get in place and they start getting for feeds, like lay out in order. If you're feeding more than one racer, or if it's just one, like lay out their stuff, like have it out there at the ready, so you don't have to go digging for it in an ice chest or in a bag or something like that. So, one thing we like to do is get riders to project their time to us. So again, going back to that crew meeting, you might hold the night before or the day before. As best as possible, you got to get time estimates from riders so you know about what time to expect them. And the reason for that is not so you can just be standing out there waving them in, but so as the hour approaches, the crew can start pulling out their particular feeds and kind of laying them out, and maybe going over any notes they have about, okay, I want to make sure I do all these things for the rider as they come in. So organization, you want to avoid the thing too to remember about the feed zones is it goes quicker than you think, right? You're thinking, oh, it's going to be an all day thing. It takes 8, 9, 10, 12 hours to do this race. I'll be out there all day. It actually happens pretty quick. Like you get out to, let's say you go out to Lost Canyon and you're standing out there, you get all set up, and before you know it, here come the pros, and next thing you know, here come hundreds of riders coming by. It happens pretty quick. Then they go up Columbine, they come back down, and your day's happening pretty quickly. So you got to be on your toes, I think, maybe more than you might think when you're kind of in a feed zone, not doing the pedaling.
Okay. This one's a little nitty gritty, but you're pretty up on all the Leadville, and this we can go into the future. We don't have to talk only about the past, but the next, the coming setup as far as aid stations. If you were going just you supporting, let's say one person, because this is pretty common. A spouse comes or a friend comes, and it's just one person supporting. What do you think your aid station strategy would be? Would you stay just at Twin Lakes, or would you? What do you think you would do? It obviously depends on the rider, but what's your gut say?
um, okay, I thought a lot about this recently because they've changed the game so much there. I mean, Lifetime, I get the feeling is really trying to get people to use their newest aid station, which is called Outward Bound. Now, they've had that during the run. That's now a spot for the bike, too. That's a large field there. It's a piece of double track that runs between the two pavement sections. It feels like they're trying to get more people to go there. And I've heard, I haven't worked that zone yet. I've only worked Pipeline, Twin Lakes Dam, Twin Lakes Alternate. I've heard that's a great place to be. If I was just doing one person, it's interesting. I think I would do this. I'd get an e-bike or a motorcycle if I had one. And as soon as my rider left the start line, if he wanted me there at all, I would bolt for outward bound and just be at the ready in case he needed something, maybe a quick bottle hand up or something. We're talking about, I think, a faster rider here too, right? Okay. So maybe be there at outward bound or pipeline, which you can also go to for a bottle hand up. And then I would, Lifetime may not like this. I would hop on my e-bike motorcycle and try to make a run for Lost Canyon, Twin Lakes Dam. Now, that they've lotteried all that off now. And you're supposed to have a parking permit, but I think I'd try to get in there if I could on an e-bike or Twin Lakes Dam.
If there's one thing we've kind of realized with Leadville, and maybe they're going to crack down on this more, is that the rules only apply if you're following the rules.
Yes, yeah. Now, if I was following the rules this year, I think I would shoot for hopefully getting a lottery spot. You know, they're doing a reservation system at Lost Canyon now. I've always loved Lost Canyon as a feed zone. I think I would shoot for that. I'd probably go straight there early in the morning if I got a spot. And then do the outward and outbound and inbound feeds there for my rider. And then I would try and make the jump back across to outward bound, the spot we talked about earlier. Now, as a backup, I would probably have my rider have some drop bags there too in case I missed that rider. But if they really thought, if this was the kind of rider that really needed the support of crew, and some folks really need there's actually a decent debate going on now too, since there's all this infrastructure and red tape surrounding crew zones at Leadville. A lot of people are starting to say, just use the neutral feed zones, and that's a viable option for people. Like there's plenty of neutral feed out there to get this thing done. But there's plenty of folks out there who really need not only just somebody to hand them food, but the moral support. Like that is a thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's a thing to have a recognizable face there, pat you on the back, push you out of a feed zone. And if I'm working for a rider I think needs that level of support, I'm going to try to, after feeding them at what we call Twin Lakes Alternate or Lost Canyon, try to make the jump back to outward bound on the inbound ride. And pick them up there as well to give them one last little shove.
Yeah, one like just
if I'm alone, yeah. I'm traveling light. Either way, if I'm doing this the e-bike way or not, I'm going to travel light, so not a lot of extra gear, so I can pack up quickly and keep moving. So that's probably how I do it now. Now that runs counter to how we've done it for years. We've always run what we call the zone defense, where we've put, and we feed multiple riders, so it makes a lot of sense. We end up with a lot of passes. We put someone at either pipeline or outward bound, and then someone on the other end of the race, usually at Twin Lakes Alternate. Sometimes we've had people in 3 spots, depending, because we've had a mixture of pros and amateurs we've been feeding. So we'll try to put a lot of people out there, and it's almost pro-like the way we run it. And that gives people every opportunity. If they have a problem, if they need something they weren't expecting, they can stop anywhere along the way, and we can help them. So I encourage people to double up. If you're alone and you don't mind sharing resources, buddy up with somebody and say, hey, you station outward bound, we'll be at Twin Lakes Alternate / Lost Canyon. I'll handle your rider, you handle mine, you team it up like that. And that's really, I think, an effective way to do it. That means less driving. You don't have to traverse the course as much. You just station your 2 stations all day long. There's still the neutral feed areas. Should the rider run into real trouble, they can always stop at one of the neutral feed areas. Yeah. Do a bottle, stuff like that. So,
okay. Well, yeah.
Now, I actually have a question So we know a lot of people who are showing up with their spouse, right? Like the spouse doesn't necessarily know a lot about Leadville. You have the rider, and notice I'm not saying like genders here. This is not always like male rider, female, like crew person. What are your best tips for this scenario where you have like the one person who's maybe not as super familiar with crewing? They're feeling a little bit like terrified and awkward and uncomfortable and everything. Best tips for them, and best tips for the rider who is dealing with the fact that his or her spouse has traveled to Leadville and is going to stand in a field for 10 hours that day and hold out a bottle. And
Yeah.
perhaps we should not yell at them if the bottle does not get delivered perfectly. Not that I'm leading the witness here or anything like that.
For the newbie spouse, again, I'm going to go back to the partner up thing if you can. Find somebody who's done this before. There's a Facebook participants page, the Leadville Trail 100 Mountain Bike Facebook's participants page. There's a lot of people on there. You got to be able to find somebody who can say, hey, could I partner up with somebody just for some help? I would partner up with somebody who knows, right, the rules of the road out there, and they'll help you make sure you're standing in the right spot, doing the right thing, so on and so forth, right? Impatient riders. This is no. This is not just something exclusive to endurance racing, Leadville. I saw this in road racing all the time. Riders yelling at spouses about bottle hand-ups or what they were giving them or where they were standing. It's just inexcusable. There's just no good reason for it to take your frustration out at somebody who is essentially volunteering. I mean, would you do it to somebody standing in the neutral aid station? Would you yell at them?
Probably.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's your character. I don't know, but you should say please and thank you again, and I love you as you're rolling out of. And really, predominantly, that's what we see at Leadville. I see a lot of gratefulness in the feed zone, which is great. It's inspiring. I love that part of the race. But occasionally, there's a hothead that rolls through.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the reality is, this is sort of a segue, actually, but the stopping and the extra feeds and all this stuff, like in some ways, these are marginal gains, which is the topic of your current podcast. The Leadville podcast still exists, and people should go back to the archives and search through. I'll post a couple of my favorites. But your current podcast is the Marginal Gains podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, is this like, it's for masters, and you're saying, so for masters, is that like, that's the big topic, is like masters marginal gains?
It's for anybody we've had pros listen to it. Rosa Closer, who won Unbound, she was a dedicated listener. I know we have European pros in the, who race UCI races who listen to it. And we have amateur racers, and we have folks who are just enthusiasts who just love the bike and want to get the most out of their riding. So it is for anyone. I get it. It sounds very techy, very road-centric, very race-centric, but it is way more than that. So,
yes, I imagine you get outside of that. So I guess, like, to tease it then, like, for you then, what are sort of the, like, if you were going to pick the first three marginal gains, like for a master's, an age group, someone who works, doesn't have a 80 or 100 milliliter per kilogram oxygen consumption, their VO2 max is not very high. What would you say the first three big marginal gains that have come out through the show and the episode so far?
Okay, for Leadville, right? We're talking about for Leadville?
Well, this can be general, I guess, but it does obviously depend on who you are and what you're trying to do.
Okay.
If that's an easier answer, we can go Leadville or maybe endurance, gravel, or mountain bike racing.
Okay. All right. So first off, one of my favorite topics is clean and well-lubricated drivetrain.
Oh, you didn't say wax. I was expecting this to be an ad.
No, I'll say wax. Yeah, and it is.
You have to say
in my
wax,
mind.
but first
In my mind. Yeah, in my mind, it's hot waxed.
Okay.
But I don't care. In the end, as long as it is clean and well lubricated, and remember, your lube at a dusty, dirty event like Leadville is going to want to be something that's not going to penetrate and create a big paste of muck in your rollers and pins in your chain and on your cassette, right? And that's usually going to mean some type of dryer wax, and we dryer lubricant, and we like wax. We like hot wax for that situation. Wax has now proven itself in very long events. I would love it if you use the Silka stuff. I'm not employed by Silka. I'm a subcontractor for them. Their stuff works at Leadville, has worked quite a bit at Leadville, but there's other products out there too. You can save yourself a lot of headache by having just a good running drivetrain. Never mind the watt savings, right? Just the mental marginal gain you'll get from your drivetrain
not hearing it,
grinding and scrunching at you all day. That's a game changer. Don't discount aerodynamics. I know here comes the eye rolling. Like, really? I need to be aero at Leadville or at Unbound or at any slow slogging event? Yes, you do. You should not throw away aerodynamics, because at Leadville in particular, while your average speed will be 11 miles an hour, hopefully 12 miles an hour, that's right at kind of that spot where aerodynamics really starts to matter. There are times when you're rolling at 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour on some descents. Across the pipeline, you might be going 20 miles an hour. Well, that's aerodynamic stuff right there. You need to be able to, cheat the wind a little bit, because the mountain bike is this sticky outy bitty thing. It's got all kinds of problems. So you want to make sure that when you're facing the wind, you've got a jersey on that's not flapping in the wind and causing you more trouble, right? A nice snug fitting jersey. I'm not saying wear an aero suit out there. That's not it. Just a good fitting jersey that's nice. Wear aero socks. I know this is another one. People are like, aero socks? What do we need aero socks for? First of all, there's about 2 to 3 watts down there. You'd be surprised. And number 2, you got to wear socks anyhow. Put on a good pair of socks. That makes sense, right? In the sense. And, learn what it means to be a little narrower when you need to be. Like, handle your bike. Don't lose control of the bike. Know how to skinny up a little bit. I would say the third aero thing, fourth, wherever I'm on now, is a helmet. Pay attention what kind of helmet you are wearing. I would say lean, unless it's a really hot day, which can be an issue with aero helmets. Lean to something that's got more aero qualities to it, right? Finally, the biggie, the one that everyone loves to talk about, tires and tire pressure. This thing you got to nail, right? For a big, long event like that, rolling resistance is your second biggest thing to overcome compared to aerodynamics. Like you're the biggest thing, right? You're dragging. Gravity's the other thing at Leadville. Like gravity's a thing, but otherwise, right? You've got rolling resistance to deal with. It's really important you pay attention to your tire pressure, right? And the tires you're running. Now, tires is a massive topic at Leadville. You're going to see all kinds of debate about what to run, what one guy runs, what another lady runs, what's the best compound, right? What's the best TPI count to have? What's whether or not to run inserts. There is a huge argument going on right now, and has been, regarding Leadville tires. So you're going to have to find out. First of all, you have to look at what skill set do you have as a rider? Are you the type of rider who's going to need a little more grip in the sketchy spots at Leadville? Maybe then you want to lean to something that's got more knob, more grip to it. Or are you a really good bike handler that would like to find a little more straight line speed? Then you're going to try to go with something maybe a little lower knob, a little higher TPI count, and then finally you got to work on that pressure so you optimize that rolling resistance, right? And you start by going to a pressure calculator. Silka's got one, Zip's got one, a lot of companies have one. Get an idea where they put you based on your weight, your system weight, and the tire running and the surface you'll be on. Start with that, and then start messing with that number a little bit. If it says, run 17 front, 18 rear, start there and then go, okay, what if I could drop by a PSI front and rear and see if you start picking up maybe a PR or you start rolling along a little bit better. And you want to nail that pressure. One thing you got to remember about tire pressure, by the way, folks, when you pump up your tires in the morning at Leadville, your tire pressure is going to go up as the day goes along because you got a big temperature swing, right? You're going to start at 40 or cooler in the morning, and by the end of the day, it's going to be 70 something. So it's a 30-degree temperature swing. Your tire pressure is going to go up during the day.
Amazing. That was a really well done. That's like an article right there. 3 things to optimize with your marginal gains. And I would say those are, I think good things. Those aren't, you haven't gotten into super nitty gritty supplements or something like that. But it's basic, but then it's also not common, right? It's sort of that it's simple, not easy, or whatever you want to say. So yeah, I love those. So that has been an action packed. There's a lot of deets in there. I'll try and link to everything, including the tire pressure stuff you talked about, and we'll link to the wax as well.
I love it. All right, where can people find you, follow along with all of your podcasts and whatnot?
So the Leadville Trail 100 Mountain Bike Podcast, big long name, is still, obviously the catalog is still out there. Most of the episodes are still up to date and viable. There are some crewing stuff in there that is going to be a little out of date because Lifetime keeps changing the game on this. Now they have this reservation system at Lost Canyon. Twin Lakes Dam has now become a place where you cannot even bring tents anymore. You can only kind of jump into the kind of this neutral area to feed, to do a hand up for a rider. They have a shuttle system now involved too. We did some discussion on the shuttles, so that should be all up to date. So Leadville Trail 100 Mountain Bike Podcast. I think it's Leadville100podcast.com if you want to go to the site and kind of see the whole catalog. It's also available on all podcast platforms. And then Marginal Gains Podcast, marginalgainspodcast.cc. Again, available on platforms. More techie, but very interesting stuff. If you want to get into the weeds on why bikes go faster, how you can make your bike go faster, how you can make your bike more enjoyable. That's all there too. And you can find me on Instagram, Michael Hotten on Instagram, if you want to see the occasional picture I post.
Excellent. We have all those links for the show notes.
I love it. Thank you so much, Michael. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. If you want to hear more training, racing, and endurance sport advice, make sure you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating and review. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at consummateathlete.com for a weekly dose of inspiration and advice straight to your inbox.